50 seconds. I'd like to call the meeting to order, the Board of Leavenworth County Commission. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank everyone for being here today. For the record, all three commissioners are present. We'd like to open up with public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address.
Karen Sweden, and 25605 Kansas Avenue. And I would like to speak when David Lutzen comes up.
Yes,
If
that's
okay.
fine.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
I'm Walter Sweeten, 25605 Kansas Avenue, and I also would like to do the same when David comes out.
Okay, all right,
Thanks, sir.
That's fine. Thank you.
Hello, my name is T.C. Bryant. I'm basically trying to find sewer information at a lot that I purchased at 15109 Linden Court. It's a new construction. The sewer tap is not present, so I need to basically get on the agenda to see what we can do to resolve it.
Okay,
Does that
I'm
make
not
sense?
familiar.
I don't have anything. I was told just to come up
Is
here.
this in Timber Lakes?
Walnut Ridge,
Walnut Ridge? Okay.
When you go down to
lot 27.
Yeah.
So I basically just need to
Yeah.
schedule a time or a meeting with you guys.
Well,
to
have you
fix-
been to planning and zoning?
Yeah, I haven't got anywhere with them.
Okay, well,
I guess we can listen.
yeah, we could, how far is the sewer to your lot? Is it
It's across
close?
the street. There's supposed to be a sewer tap. It's on a plot plan, but there's no tap on my side of the street. Or there's really no, I mean, I've dug both ways. We can't find a tap anywhere, so
Could I
planning and
ask-
zoning.
Mr. Lugent's got some history on that, I believe.
Can I ask you a quick question
Sure.
before he speaks? Did you purchase this lot with the anticipation that there was a tap there?
Yes,
And it's in your contract or whatever you purchased it
it's on the
with?
plot plan.
The plans for the subdivision for the sanitary sewer show a service line crossing under the street to this lot. They evidently cannot find it. I'm not sure who asked him to come up here to the board. I mean, it's an issue he has to work out with other boards.
Okay, so it's, you'll take care of it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so,
All right. David's office downstairs,
okay,
Public Works.
Public Works office.
okay, all right, thank you.
All right.
My name is Lyle Fisher, 17738 Donahue. I'm here this morning because of concern about a potential change in a policy regarding maintenance of roads which have been chip and sealed by being paid for by the homeowner.
Okay, that'll be up at 9:10. Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? And we'll close this portion and go on to administrative business. Mr. Lawfrey, Mr. Van Perry, do we have anything at this time?
I don't have anything really to add. We'll have a discussion on it later on.
Okay. Okay. Commissioners, have you had a chance to look at the minutes?
I do, and I make a motion to approve the minutes as stated.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 And I have some OCBs.
I move approval of the OCVs and authorize the chairman to sign
And date.
and date.
Okay.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 Okay. Mr. Miller, we got a minute or so, but I'm sure you can kill a minute real quick. Everything going good?
Busy.
Hmm?
Pretty busy.
I have a question before you start, but we'll wait till the time clicks over.
Well, I mean, we just can't approve his contract till 9:05. Your question could be, or is it about his contract?
No, it's not about his
No.
contract, about budgeting his contract. It says non-budgeted item with available funds through prioritization.
That's just the standard button that we put on there. What we've done is we're already on this, are we?
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good.
What we've done is looked at the health assessments that we've provided to county employees in the past, and one of the things that we've noticed is there's been a lack of uptake on that availability to come to the health department, get a health assessment, get a flu shot, things of that nature. We looked at trying to expand that out and provide a better service or a better health assessment, if you will, to get more employees in, and this is what we came up with. When we found out what the cost was, I met with Mark and we also met with Janet, and one of the funding mechanisms was out of employee benefits. So that's where it's not necessarily funded out of my department, but it's funded out of employee benefits, as we're going to pay for the flu shots out of mine, but the $144 per employee that goes through this can be funded out of that, which is where we found funds to be able to provide the service.
So we have a fund called prioritization.
No, what we're doing is the fund is actually going to be risk management, correct?
Because I noticed it in
Or
two
bulletin.
segments of this
Yeah.
briefing report, not in this briefing report, but this one and another one. And I just want to understand how that funding comes out, if we're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
We have funds available in the employee benefit fund through prioritization. It is,
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
So
well-
we're taking them away from the employees to give.
no, this goes to the employees, first of all. This is for the employees. But we have a budget in there that says we're going to spend X much on health-related issues, health insurance and so on. There will be some funds left over at the end of the year just through attrition and the workforce and re-enrollment timeframes. So we're going to utilize those funds is what we propose to do to fund this.
But by doing health assessments, doesn't that potentially lower our health insurance rates by, if we have
We're working
employees,
with,
a certain percentage will participate in these?
We're working with the safety committee. That's one of the advantages. By every year, the safety committee comes to the health department and says, can you provide health assessments for our staff? And that's a requirement for the carrot card and carrot points. So
But still, couldn't that carry over into our health insurance?
it can. If we find an employee that has any of these type of potential risks, and they're sought and found before the
When we get on
actual-
the maintenance program,
Correct. That would be a savings to our health insurance and premiums and so on and so forth.
well, I think we need to do everything we can
I
for our
agree.
health insurance cost
I agree.
and have healthier employees.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now we're
Go
ready,
ahead.
Jamie. Thank you.
Again, I presented a briefing report. What this is a health assessment. It's through Stroke Prevention Plus. They use bio and cardio gauge health screenings, which is basically using sonography, carotid arteries, peripheral arteries, abdominal scans, bone density scans, things of that nature, multiple lab values. And what they're looking for are underlying medical conditions that may not have been identified, or an employee may not even know they're walking around with those risks. In discussions with the representatives, they have identified that on a normal day, they can see approximately 150 appointments with a team that they bring on board, and out of those, they usually find 1 to 2 individuals that have those risks that will go on to further treatments with their physicians and such in a preventional manner to try to alleviate whatever, if it's a stroke, if it's abdominal aortic aneurysm, whatever it is that they find. So in the grand scheme of things, this is just a more in-depth health screen that we can provide as a health department. We don't have these tools. We don't have the individuals that can come out and do this. Ours was very limited that we were providing at the health department. This is obviously a much more intensive health screen. And it's my recommendation that the not even necessarily a contract, but enter in and authorize me to work with this company to provide these screenings in October. That's what we're looking for, is a Friday, probably in October. We would also then have our flu vaccine campaign going on as well, kind of a one-stop shop out of the health department. Some of my health department staff will assist with everything that they need to get this accomplished. So I just need the board's approval to do that.
Any questions to Jamie?
Concerning the flu shots, have you ordered your supply of vaccine?
Our flu shots will actually, they should be delivered either by the end of this week or even potentially the beginning of next week.
How many did you order this year?
I would have to get the exact numbers, but we have in over 300.
They didn't come from the state of Texas, did they?
Ooh.
Yeah, it's too bad. Okay,
Motion,
Second.
voting.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
did he get
Ready for public
a second
works?
before I got a chance to make the motion? I was just asking Doug if you wanted a motion.
No.
That was fast.
We gotta stay on time.
Yeah.
A lot of people here gave up their morning for us.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I'll start with a little background on the first item on our agenda this morning. In your packet, you have the county's current.
Are you referencing the dust patch?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're,
on the same line.
didn't get out of order because there's quite a few here.
In your packet, you'll have the March document labeled March 2012. This is the current county
Right.
dust program.
I think Clyde and I both signed it.
Yeah. Part of that program is a chip seal dust patch that residents are able to select. And as outlined in the program, any reseals of that dust patch are the responsibility of the property owners. It came to my attention shortly after I took over the director position that previous directors were not following this policy. What they were doing was if a chip seal dust patch was connected to a paved road, then they would basically reseal it down the road in the future as at the cost to the county. They wouldn't have the property owners take care of it, which was in direct violation of our current policy. So on these stretches of road, we acquired no new right-of-way. We moved no utility poles, no fences, none of the standard items that need to be completed when you upgrade a road from gravel to chip and seal were completed.
But these are just patches. These are not complete roads.
Well, previous directors were treating them as such. They were treating them as upgraded chip seal roads. They were basically adding them to our chip seal network without acquiring right-of-way, moving utilities, moving fences, all that type of stuff.
And that was your policy as of 2006.
So our shop foreman created a list of roads that have been treated this way. Public Works staff has gone out, we've looked over all of them, and we've put together the following recommendations. In order to accept these roads as improved roads into the county's paved road network, we would need to acquire additional right-of-way. We would need to establish clear zones, which would require power poles, fences, anything like that within 10 feet of the edge of the road would need to be relocated. Upon completion of that, then they would be accepted into the county's paved road network for the county to maintain going forward as a chip and seal road.
So if they, so you'll have to get easement from the people.
Correct, we would need to acquire additional right-of-way from the property owners.
So if they don't acquire the easement, they won't give it up, then you no longer will.
Correct, they will either, if they are not willing to donate the easement to the county, basically, if they do not choose to reseal it at their cost in the future, then it will eventually go back to being a gravel road.
The only problem I see with that is some of these people didn't pay for it. It would be the guy down at the end of the patch that paid for it, and the people in between are not going to give up any right-of-way or move any fences or anything like that. A lot of these roads were done and put in the annual report that goes to the state. It's,
Well, I understand what previous staff was trying to do. They were just trying to get more roads improved. And if that was their intent, then they should have gone in and revised the policy. From what I understand, it's been going on for at least 2 previous directors.
It's been going on longer than that, and your list is way short of what the roads that were done. It's been going on since the early 80s. As long as it hooked to an existing blacktop, they maintained it as they went by.
So even though we approved the certain right-of-ways or roads to be done at a certain way, they weren't doing it. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying there's more roads than what's on that list that were done that way. They go back clear to the early 80s.
I'm not sure they were ever brought to the commission and even discussed or
Well,
approved.
that's
Well,
my
we
point.
got a former commissioner here. Maybe he can shed some light on it. Former Commissioner Roque, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, back then when this was started, as long as the property owners in those areas paid the initial cost to have that road chipped and sealed, that became less burden upon the county to grade this road monthly and add rock and do those things. So anytime the thinking back then was that if the public are gonna upgrade the road to a chip and seal, it's better than having a rock road.
Right.
And a lot of the improvements were done at intersections. That was to avoid the number of cars going one way and the other, and then the cloud of dust going into that intersection and having head-on crashes. This particular there on Hollingsworth, in the previous 5 years, I think there've been 3 or 4 head-on collisions at the top of that hill, and that's why the board cut that hill down and lowered it and chipped and sealed it to do away with the clouds of dust and reduce the accidents, which impacts, when you have it, impacts the sheriff's department, impacts the EMS, and a lot of times the general public. So if we can avoid those things, we try to do it. Now, what's happened since then, I don't know.
Yeah, it's gotten well beyond just doing intersections.
I think.
No,
I
they
think
all
that-
hook to an existing blacktop, though.
I think he's referring to the road at
They all hook
170.
to an existing blacktop,
Okay.
and maintaining intersections is tough because everybody's applying their brakes and creating washboards at these intersections. And then you got a motor grader sitting out in the main blacktop trying to fix the intersection up. Since then, we have all put asphalt aprons on each of the intersections that approach the blacktop now.
And let's just talk for just a second about maintenance. My name is Lyle Fisher, 17738 Donahue. In 2007, after the previous commission had improved the intersection at 179th and Donahue, which was the one you're talking about actually, cutting the hill down and chipping and sealing it. I had moved out. I lived to the east of that intersection. My mother-in-law didn't like the dust, period. So we took advantage of the county program to chip and seal the road in front of our house. Since you had a policy of maintaining that road, if I connected to your road, we paid the additional cost for 2 additional parties to the west of me who didn't join in with me and chipped and sealed the road all the way to your road at 179th and Donahue, period. Think of the time, look at me, think of the time here, what I just said. We did this in 2007. This is 10 years ago. Since then, you have come out and done work on my road twice. Once in conjunction with the remainder of the road at 179th and Donahue, when you applied a new surface to it. And the second time, when I basically kept bitching about the hole that had developed in the road to the west of me, which was subsequently repaired. Twice, 2 times, 10 years. During that entire 10-year period of time, I have watched your gravel trucks drive up and down that road carrying gravel over to 175th Street at the rate of at least 20 trucks per summer and winter, moving up and down the road. Can you tell me, can you possibly in any way, shape, or form, Mr. Engineer, maintain that I'm costing you more money than it would cost you to put the road back to gravel and run your damn trucks up and down it so you can dump more gravel on it? I don't think so.
We're not going to be putting any roads back to gravel.
Commission, I'm not saying I don't want paved roads in the county.
Yes,
But
you are.
we have a safety issue that has to be addressed. When you improve a road from gravel to hard surface, we have to establish clear zones. We know traffic speeds are going to increase when they're on a paved road. We know that. We hear it all the time from property owners, and we know it for a fact.
Mm-hmm.
So we still have power poles within feet now of these paved roads that people are driving at high rates on. These items should have been addressed. I'm trying to address them.
Well, we can list them as, we don't have to.
You're not addressing them. There's not a power pole within 20 feet of the road that I've got in front of my house. They were all set off over in Joe Daniels' field years ago.
Well, these are still
You know.
considered low-volume roads, most of these.
You know,
Yes, people, please.
Sure.
I've got just a little bit of documentation that I had when I spoke with, unfortunately, poor David here is brought in at the end of all of this. And,
You're at the Rocking Sea.
yes, and he, thank you. I had a conversation with him when they were out doing the chip and seal for Walking Sea. And I gave him a call and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, you forgot about us. So then the first page is basically my email to David about it. And the second page is to back up, we had gone in and talked to the previous Director of Public Works and the Deputy of Public Works and all, and had talked to them, and probably half a dozen times. We made one other visit to them to make sure everything was in, that they would maintain the road, they would tie it into Rocking Sea, and whatever they did to Rocking Sea, they would do to us. The speed limit is still low. It is not a high-speed area. We moved mailboxes and all to give visibility for that road. So the safety requirements that the county asked us to do, we did provide.
Right.
Since then, they have maintained it. They have mowed the right-of-way, and they have patched it. So basically, the second page is a written confirmation that in the past, when a group of owners get together and then pay for chip and seal dust patch that ties into the already completed asphalt pavement, we have extended the maintenance program to include these sections.
Mm-hmm.
That was verified here. So it's not that we're asking for a great big huge, 2-lane road to go in. These were patches to gravel roads for the benefit of the taxpayers that were living on those roads. We don't expect them to be high-speed roads. We don't think they will ever be high-speed roads. We don't think that safety issues for State Avenue apply to these dust patches. So because We have basically a verbal contract. It's identified and backed up by a written email. And we have performance by the county accepting the verbal contract by actually doing the patchwork and all. I don't see how we can't grandfather these in. And if the policy needs to be changed going forward, change it going forward. And if the safety issues need to be addressed by moving poles and stuff, it'd be done over a gradual period of time. But to make promises to the property owners with an employee before David, I don't have a crystal ball to know that they're going to be ousted and what they say doesn't apply. Because quite frankly, if they were still here, we wouldn't have the issue. Nothing personal, but that is.
No, I understand what David's trying to do. He's trying to put a policy in place.
Exactly. So he's kind of between a rock and a hard place, and I don't want to say anything negative, about David because he's,
Right.
I'm sure he's trying to do the best he can.
And this should have been, I guess, memorialized into a policy, but I guess it was always just left up to the county engineer.
Right, so I think it's time maybe we just kind of take care of what's done and then address what
I agree,
else
because
going forward.
none of these roads have center line stripes and
No,
and
they
none of
do
that
not.
on, and basically, they can be signed that way,
Right,
This is
and
a
if
dust
you don't-
control road.
Right, and if we let the overgrowth go on the sides, it deteriorates the road. So, and it does allow the county to take chip and seal roads and dust patches, because let's face it, when you put loose gravel down on the road, it is a whole lot more of a safety issue with a vehicle going on it trying to stop and all, because they tend to fishtail.
Mhm.
So,
Well, I'll go on record saying I hate gravel roads, all right? It's out there.
okay.
I worked
so-
on too many years
So all
to
I'm
enjoy
asking
it.
is that if the county consider the promises that were made in the past, grandfather it in, and then if the policy needs to be changed from this point, then, naturally, you have to do what you have to do. But you can't expect the taxpayers and the landowners to know what a job description is for an employee when they walk in,
Right.
what they're authorized to do and what they're not authorized to do. And
I agree, that will give David a whole winter to develop a new policy before next spring.
okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
One question I want to ask you, David, just to clarify it. So these dust patches that you have listed hook up to an intersection or another piece of blacktop. And so by that happening, these people don't have to pay for the resealing of it in future years, or haven't had to pay.
That's what was being done previously.
Right. So
Not
say
following the policy.
say someone has a dust patch, and he's the only, or she is the only one on that road that has a dust patch, but he or she has to pay for that every year.
If they have gravel on each side of them.
Right.
They have to follow, typically every 4 or 5 years, they need to have it resealed.
Right, and they have to pay for it.
That's what the policy requires. Policy requires every reseal to be paid for by the property.
See, when we did ours, not every property owner.
Would participate.
Exactly, so we
Mhm.
paid. There were two.
You
other
say you
property
paid
owners.
$10,000-$12,000?
So we paid we had one property owner at the very end that helped contribute. We had one across from us. The people in between, we paid theirs. So it would be a continuous road, so we would qualify for the continued maintenance, the snow removal.
Were you $10,000 or $12,000?
Yeah,
Okay, Mr. Fisher's?
$10,400.
How much?
$10,400.
Okay, all right. So,
Now I got a comment.
yes, sir.
Now I'm hearing from my neighbors, why didn't they chip and seal when they were out here? The poor guys never paid a godforsaken dime.
Right.
So now I'm on the hot seat.
Yeah.
And I'm angry, because when a man gives me his word, and he
Yeah.
comes back and says, oh, that's not what I mean,
Now,
I'm lawyer ready.
we're not going to do that, Mr. Sweeten.
I mean, you understand my grief here?
I do.
Yeah, I
I
paid
do.
for 1,350 feet when I did it, Dennis, and if you really want me to give you $2,700 to come back out there and reseal that road to, oh, by the way, go down and match the portion of it that you just installed for Dan
Mhm.
Hyatt at the end, who
Mhm.
is expecting you to maintain it eventually, I'll be more than happy to do that. but I want you to know that ain't what you promised me when I put it down.
Commissioners, I'm just trying to correct.
And I understand it wasn't you.
Sir,
I understand it wasn't you. It's ultimately that group up there, or the group that was there when I did it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still,
It's been honored. in
it's a
the past.
promise made, guys. Is it gonna be a promise kept?
I guess
Well, the
this
board-
would this allow us to change policy? We're not bound by future commissions
Right.
or prior commissions.
I'm
And
not-
so we don't have to
Right,
go
I'm
by
not
that.
asking for a policy change today. What I'm trying to address is what was done in the past. with the previous
Well, I think we need to,
patches. The previous patches did not follow policy.
So we need to follow
I cannot-
policy now.
I cannot continue what previous staff was doing because it is against policy.
Right.
then you need a policy to grandfather these list of roads in.
I don't need a policy for that. I would need, if that's the direction the board wants to take, then I need a board motion saying to adopt, accept all of these segments of road into the county's network.
Mhm.
I think we need to table this, discuss it a little more.
Well, I think before we make that type
Yeah.
of motion, we need to get a listing of how many there are and what would be involved in the future maintenance of that.
Right.
Well-
This is the list that our maintenance supervisor provided.
It's on the back side of your document.
I think there
Briefing
are probably
report.
two subjects that need to be discussed. One is how we handle the existing ones, the grandfathering them in, or however we want to handle that.
That'd be the
as a board.
simplest way to do it.
And then how you handle it going forward.
See, because they weren't doing according to policy several years ago.
Somewhere along the line, somebody
But
wasn't.
we passed policy to have it done, is what
2012
David, and I
policy.
agree with David.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's been, some of these was approved by the board.
Probably, and what happened
They'd have
prior
to
to
go back through and
2012.
look at some of the
these
minutes.
Are well ahead of 2012, so it's what the board wants to do now. I mean, how do you want to handle the existing roads that are out there, and how do you want to handle it going forward? We just need to make sure that we're clear on those two items.
Well, yes, ma'am?
You just made the statement that you aren't bound
Right.
by past commissioners nor future commissioners.
No, we're not bound by any commission. In other words, the commissioners that approved this back then, this is a different commission.
Correct.
So we're not bound.
Unless we put it into a policy, and then the future commission can change the policy.
Right.
So where does a landowner go to know that when they make an agreement with an employee or someone with a director status or management status, if they're going to do something and give their word, how do we know that's going to be honored? How do we know that that's just not, well, you know, next week they can change that? Or, you know, well, I know they said that before, but we're just not going to do it now. How do we know? We don't have a crystal ball. And I don't think you can expect us to have a crystal ball. I mean, we have a verbal contract
Mhm.
that's documented in writing via email, that is a accepted form of communication. We have promissory estoppel because of the promises that were made. We relied on those promises and made promises to other people.
Right.
So, I mean, if you look at the legalities of it, you can do it in two parts. You don't have to table the issue and just say that's
Right.
it. You can grandfather it in and then take issue with the safety of upgrading it over a period of time. Because to not maintain it now makes it a whole lot more unsafe than it would be if it were maintained the way the previous promise was made.
Yeah.
So I don't understand
Most of these
why you
people,
can't.
they put up a
I
pretty large
guess-
portion of money.
I guess what my real problem with this issue is not maybe not the grandfathering, but you said that you paid for one of your neighbors so that you could have a continuous road. What
We
makes,
both did.
okay, what makes you think that neighbor, is he still there?
Yes.
Yes.
What makes you think that neighbor is going to sign an easement to take part of his ground And
They're probably not.
That easement is already in there. If you look at the county map, that easement and right of way
he
is already
signed
there.
he signed an easement.
No, it's already on the plat map. I mean, if you go in there and you look, the county has a right of way, so many feet on either side.
No,
That's
but he-
there.
But
No
not-
He's
additional
asking for
right-of-way is
more.
required.
Right, the 60 feet.
Correct. It's most of these are most likely 40-foot right.
Right, so he's not going to sign the easement to, or he possibly could, but he would have to sign an easement to give up 60 foot.
Okay, you're gonna have a bigger problem, because when Rocking Sea Estates was done, it was done below code. But it was accepted as a county road. So you're gonna tear up all those roads?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I
by
mean-
that.
I don't know what she means
As
either.
far as I know, it was built to county standards.
Yeah.
Well,
I think,
like I said,
I think you simply need to take a look at the absolute big picture of the whole process, Bob. You know, Leavenworth County, go anywhere in the metropolitan area, go over to a Royals game, a Chiefs game, go to a KU game, I don't care. Look in the parking lot. Find the cars that have got dust on their butts, and chances are 9 out of 10 it's a Leavenworth County car. You know, come on, folks. You want economic development in this county? You gave Riley $5 million to build a damned industrial park he was going to build anyway? And you can't pave the roads in the county? You can't even maintain the roads that have already, that your residents are paying to pave.
Go out.
Come
and look,
on.
Go out and look at the back of my car.
I understand, and I know where you live, Bob, but I
Go
also
out and
know
look at
that,
the
also know
clerk's
that you
car.
paid to have the road in front of you chip and seal.
I did, and I paid
And I
for it.
suspect you paid for it
I paid
because
for
you
it.
didn't connect to an existing county road.
I've paid for it 3 times,
Exactly.
so I'm continuing to pay for it.
300 feet, you got a 300-foot patch? Okay,
Our-
less than $2 to reseal now, so you're about $600 every time.
$600.
No,
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
that. I
On
paid-
reseal?
I paid $2,400 to have the original patch put down. And
That was
then-
back
You must
in the
have hit it right
$6
when
day. I paid
gas was
$8
$4 a gallon or something.
Yeah, I don't know, but
Must
I
have been
paid
pretty-
way more than $600.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but to
here's my-
reseal those about $600.
Here's my point,
I'll never have
commissioners.
it done this year.
You should be doing absolutely everything in your power to have every single road in this entire county paved. Now, if you don't want to float a bond issue and simply do it all in one fell swoop, then accept what you're getting, which is residents paying for it because they don't want to live on dirt roads anymore. But for God's sakes, come along and maintain them after that, because you're going to maintain gravel. Why aren't you going to maintain chip and seal?
We are. Yeah, your district has the most gravel roads. I think 3rd district's got what, 200 and something gravel roads.
I don't have a district.
I think Commissioner Hall has about 150 in his. I think Clyde has about 10 in his. You got the good district, Clyde. You don't have gravel roads.
How many do you have in your road?
206, 210, something like that, I think. You know. And they're all, like I said, the southern part's got a lot of traffic on it too.
Yeah.
You know.
Southern part's part of your county that's growing, folks.
It's
Look at
probably the
how
only
it's
part of the
based.
county that's growing.
You know, pave the
Yeah.
roads.
So. Mr. Lawfer, you got any recommendation?
But I'm going to say this is really similar to an issue that we just addressed with non-compliant lots.
Mm-hmm.
We had an employee, a director, who had issued letters that may or may not have been by policy. There may have been a misinterpretation. But the board adopted a new policy which allowed us to pretty much honor those letters in one shape or form or another. You have a similar issue here where a director or 2 or 3 or 4 have made promises. Now, policy now doesn't allow those same things to happen, but that doesn't mean that those promises weren't made 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, whatever they were. So the board could adopt a policy that allows us to continue to treat those items as if they were compliant and as part of the road system, and we would continue to maintain them. There is a benefit to the county to have roads maintained. I don't think it would hurt for the staff to ask for additional right-of-way, but not to have that as a requirement of continuing to maintain those roads. Simply because these people did get a promise from us that we would maintain them. And it does reduce the cost of maintenance long-term.
So you're saying we were bound by prior commission?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have the opportunity to
Well,
make that decision.
you're saying it, but you're saying it between the lines because you are saying it.
Well, I'm saying in the past we have done that. And I'm also saying that these people have a legitimate, they've come up with a legitimate concern of theirs, and that this board has the ability to do one or the other. You can say, yes, we're going to honor the previous letters that were issued, or no, we're not. But
Yeah,
we
was
have,
done in 2015.
but what you have right now is a policy that doesn't allow for us to continue on. So we need,
But that, you know, this policy's been in place.
I think it says 2012.
When did we sign that policy?
The current one was 2012.
2012.
There was a policy.
There was a policy prior to that also, it was similar.
Similar
Pretty much
policy.
Similar policy, right.
Yeah.
So it's been in place, it's just that the directors before David haven't bothered to go by the policy.
It hasn't been in place. Your policy as of 2006 was to maintain anything that tied into you.
See, he's got a letter from the county there.
It's not a letter, it's a road policy summary from the Leavenworth County Public Works Department, February 24th, 2006.
Yeah, and then,
I have an email.
right, no, I knew, like I said, I was there.
I'm not disagreeing that.
Right.
This is what was going on.
So, we could have a motion to grandfather these in and ask for additional right-of-way, but if you get it, you get it, if you don't, you don't.
And
And then Mr. Lujan has got all winter to come up with a new policy for next year when the dust control season comes.
I'm not sure.
but what do we?
We'll discuss that.
Yeah, we'll talk to it, but I think the policy that's in place is fine. It's just the application of the policy. to
Right.
lot
We
roads
need
that are
to- we
existing.
need to-
Well,
go
but
by
we need to
policy.
address.
So, who's gonna come out and maintain my road?
Sir,
that's
we're
got-
trying to have a
that's got
discussion here.
holes
There's
in
no
it?
need
Now,
for you
excuse
to.
me, But,
We'll get that taken care of today. But to have a policy where they do hook to existing blacktop, if he wants to go in the future
That's,
to where,
the PRP program addresses that.
right.
Absolutely. Yep.
So anybody
That's
wants
where
to-
we should be directing people is to the PRP program.
Mhm.
If they connect to an existing, they shouldn't be going to the dust program, they should be going to the PRP program.
Right.
Correct.
And they don't have to pay anything.
Correct.
These people are paying to speed up the process, so,
And that's exactly a discussion item that we've had, and we need to talk
you know,
about.
if people are willing
if
to
we-
put some money in on
If we
this.
change our PRP program to allow people who are willing to pay up front to get stepped up on priority. But today, really, the item is, and what these folks are here for is, are you going to grandfather them in and allow us to continue to maintain that with no additional right-of-way? We'll ask for it, but if they don't give it, that doesn't mean we won't maintain it. Or are you going to say they're not grandfathered in and we're going to?
Well, I'll make a motion that says that we grandfather these roads in and ask for additional right-of-way. If we get it, we get it. If we don't, we don't. But continue maintaining them as hard surface roads.
Second.
Voting.
So you're saying that you're binding us to prior commissioners?
I'm making a motion today, not,
So
And it's
you're-
referring to the current dust patch list.
Right. I'm concerned that we're being held hostage here by the prior commissioners.
Hostage. Hey, you're looking at a hostage.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of this commission. If I could offer a suggestion, rather than utilize the phrase grandfather, if your desire is to simply accept them, those tracks into the current road policy.
That would be,
Okay. I'll rescind my motion.
you rescind your second.
All right, then I'll make a motion that we accept these list of roads into the county's road inventory as hard surface roads.
Do we not want to put in parentheses there? Hard surface roads, parentheses, dust patches, closed?
I can,
I
and
think in the minutes.
also add that ask for additional right-of-way. If we can get it, we can get it. If we can't,
One other thing I think needs to be put in there, you're sure this is all the roads?
Those are the roads that our maintenance supervisors provided. If Commissioner Smith knows more, we can,
Because I guess what I'm
Okay.
saying is, if we go by this list and leave somebody out,
well, obviously they're not being let out, they're being maintained, so let's don't drag that out.
Mr. Chairman, members of this commission, if at some point in the future an additional road is identified, it can be dealt with at the same time, at that time, by the same motion.
Okay. Second?
Ready? Aye.
No. Did you second it?
Yes, I did.
All right, voting. Aye.
aye.
Now, we can get Mr. Fisher's road fixed.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
No problem. Thanks for coming. All right, we're ready for 182nd Street.
182nd, this is the KTA project. The KTA is replacing the 188th and the 182nd Street bridges. I believe the 188th Street was supposed to open last Monday. I assume that was completed. 182nd was supposed to be closed, and they should be working on tearing it out. The county entered into an agreement last year with KTA that the new 182nd Street bridge would be constructed online with 182nd Street. They take the skew out of the bridge. And the county agreed at that time that the county would extend 182nd to connect to that new bridge. Earlier this year, the county entered into a contract with MHS for the design of that connection. I'm asking today to revise that to be a design build and enter into an agreement with McAfee and King's Construction to construct that extension of 182nd Street to match into the new bridge. To the new bridge. King's Construction is already on site. They already have all the equipment. They have soil borrow area already established down there. All the personnel that's needed is already down there. It makes sense to update this to a design build.
Of course, I've always got a question. I guess, were you planning on doing this originally
In-house,
in-house?
the construction side? No, I was not. We've got massive.
I guess,
We got like 20-plus foot fills. That exceeds the capabilities of our personnel and equipment to handle.
I guess what I'm wondering is how come this wasn't a budgeted item? It says it's a non-budgeted item with available funds through prioritization
Well,
again.
originally the plan was to design it this year and then build it next year. But
Okay. All right.
after meeting with the designer and the contractor on site and saying, everything's already here, we're ready to go, it makes sense to build it now
Okay.
instead of waiting until next
I
year.
just wanted to know why it wasn't a
Yeah,
budgeted
the plan was
item.
originally to do it next year.
Okay.
I don't think we thought KTA was going to complete it.
Well, I was kind of
They
surprised
are
myself.
moving-
They're moving.
They're moving along faster than we thought. They've already got the one bridge done and they're moving on to the second.
We talked about it in budget last year, I believe, not this year. Public Works did.
Right,
But we didn't
that's
have
why-
any idea it was going to come this fast.
That's why I was wondering
And
why.
I'm sure you guys are familiar with this, how that bridge used to be an offset
Right.
and now it's straight.
Now, it was,
And that is actually a county route. That's County Route 37.
yeah,
So,
I agree. I just
and
was.
as long as
I was just
we're not
wondering.
violating any bidding policies or state statutes by doing a
Sure.
design build like this.
Janet, is there plenty of funding in this
David and I did look at some additional funds that he had for projects that came in under bid. And since he did want to move it up a year, I mean, it was previously going to be on the list. We did come up with the funds from savings on other projects. For instance, we looked at capital improvement there. We looked at the old sales tax because he had a lot of savings there from the A32 bridge from Mount Olivet Road.
Okay, just as long as there's,
Well, there's also money for what did not overlay County Road 1
this,
this year.
would this,
Would that funds be what you're
No,
talking
we're
about?
pushing that, so that'll still be in there for next year.
We
Okay.
did not take any of the funds from
County Road 1?
resurfacing County Road.
Okay,
yeah, that's, was my concern.
No, we
Yeah.
did not.
We already have an agreement with MHS, as an engineering agreement, and state law does allow us to do design builds, so this wouldn't be in violation of any state laws I'm aware of, and our purchasing.
well, I don't think you'd get it done any cheaper, but
No.
Well, that would be my last question was, did you pencil it out, see if we could do it cheaper than they could, even though I know that all the equipment and everything's down there.
Yeah, I don't think this is a project the county wants to take on with internal forces.
Okay. Motion,
and the contractor's already made a deal with the landowner to buy dirt.
Right, he's already got a borrow.
Yeah, so it's already set up.
do you want to entertain a motion?
I do.
Motion to approve the request by Public Works on, this is the
Design build.
design build.
for the 82nd Street.
182nd.
Yeah, 182nd Street.
Second.
Voting.
Aye.
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 Entrance permit revisions.
Next
This has
item.
been a long time coming.
Next item on the agenda is request to revise our entrance permit application. Currently, the application allows the applicant to choose if they want the county to install it, the entrance, or if they want to construct the entrance themselves. If they choose to have the county install it, the county will install the pipe, they'll cover the pipe with 2 or 3 loads of dirt, usually at the most, and that's pretty much all the county will do. We don't fine grade it, we don't put any gravel on top of it. So a lot of times, we get calls and complaints that, hey, you were gonna build my entrance. It's like, well, they expect a completed, finished entrance, well, that's not really what the county does. So I would like to get the county out of the entrance building process and let the homeowner, contractor take care of that. So the revisions I'm requesting are the county will no longer offer to install the entrance. The fee will remain $150, but only $100 will be refundable, down from $125. Every entrance permit requires at least 2 visits by the Public Works Department. The first time we go out, we have to approve the location, we have to size the pipe, then we have to go back after it's constructed and make sure it was built according to county regulations.
It's actually 3, because you gotta go out and install it.
Well, previously, yes.
Right.
With the change, we may no longer.
But for $150, actually, like I said,
Actually, it's only $50 because it's, and they're $100 refundable.
No, it's a $25 refund right now.
Right now, yes.
For
$125, they were getting it.
Yeah, they were getting a tube installed and possibly some dirt. And you got a truck, trailer, backhoe.
Sounds like a great deal.
It is a great deal. Plus, like you said, you got a supervisor that goes out and inspects before and after. And I think we're cutting into private side here of contractors should, because if somebody's building a house, they're gonna have a contractor there anyways.
Does
I
that,
included a revised permit.
one thing I read through the briefing report, but I don't think it was mentioned in it. Do we still, what will happen after 15 years and the bottom of the culvert goes out?
Once the first culvert is purchased by the property owner, after that, it's the county's responsibility.
Okay, that's what I
That's
was
state
wondering.
statute.
Right. We maintain
We have no say over that.
State statute, I thought so. Just wanted to make sure and clarify.
And that they plug up. And that's, the county's getting enough driveway culverts now. They can keep a guy busy just fixing them without having to chase around installing new ones. And with that, he's got another deal on that is we don't sell the culverts, so they have to purchase them and have them delivered. There's been several instances where we've showed up and they weren't there to install the culvert and the culvert wasn't there. Or as soon as they drop it off, they want you there right now so nobody walks off with the culvert. So it's time to get it, I think, over to the private side installing these new entrances. Any questions, Commissioner, on David's recommendation?
Motion.
Got a motion, Commissioner?
I guess I'm still sitting here thinking, say it isn't a real entrance, but that there, people are using it to go back and forth. We charge them a fee to replace the current?
No. If there's a current, if it's an existing driveway and the culvert's already there, no, the county replaces that for free when it fails. He's talking about brand new entrances where they go to planning and zoning, get an entrance permit. Public Works has to go out and size the pipe, make sure the ditch is clean enough to install the culvert, and then they would have a contractor install the culvert.
Yeah, I move approval.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 Oh.
Next item this morning is the replacement of the roof on the salt dome out at the county shop.
Trevor. It's always expensive.
Buildings and grounds solicited bids for the replacement of the roof. Notices were sent out to 6 contractors, advertised in the newspaper and on the county website. We received 2 bids. Public Works recommends accepting the low bid of R8 Construction of Kansas City in the amount of $38,957.
Might point out, this is a budgeted item.
Right, and it's kind of fell within what you thought it was going to cost.
I don't want to question, I just want to make an observation. By putting this out for bid, it's quite a savings to us, from $55,000 down to $38,957. So I think that's just a realization that putting out for bid is the best way.
I thought you were going to volunteer to go up there and roof it yourself.
No, I'm not going to.
That's a tough job.
I want to keep him away from anything on a roof.
Yeah,
I used to go up there every year on top of it.
you did.
Yeah, because I had to grease this. So I wasn't going to send nobody up there.
Oh,
I did it.
so you're expendable and they're not.
That's right. That's the way it worked. But
Motion to approve the salt dome roof and R8 Construction Kansas City will get the bid for $38,957.
Second.
voting.
Aye.
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 You got your on-call engineers.
Yeah, the last item this morning is approval of our Public Works on-call services consultant list. The last list that Public Works had expired in 2015. So we're trying to get a new list established. We solicited interest from consulting firms in the area. I received 11 responses back from interested firms. It's kind of divided them up into different areas like surveying, road design, bridge design. It's kind of outlined on your RVA. What this allows us to do is instead of every time we have a project going out for RFQ again, we've already pre-qualified these firms. So now we can go to 1 or 2 firms and have them give us a proposal when we have a project. So it kind of speeds things up for us a little bit.
I do recognize one firm under surveying. Is there any other local companies?
Dill is also local.
Roger is, yeah.
Okay.
Any questions, commissioners?
Local engineer on there also.
Local engineer, you say?
Yeah, Napier's local guy.
Okay. I was thinking they were, but I wasn't for sure.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 Are you gonna ever revise the list of on-call contractors for like,
For buildings and grounds.
well, no, it was, we used to have an on-call list for contractors when
Oh.
Public Works needed, like, for a road project or something, or are we just gonna just bid them? I don't,
I'd probably prefer to bid those out
okay.
instead of having an on-call list.
You don't think you have a need for any on-call
I haven't.
assistance? You haven't ran across
I haven't
anything
seen
yet?
it yet, no.
Okay. I mean, we used to have one years ago. It just kind of expired, and we never did it. But this expired a couple of years ago, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you're probably right. We're getting to the point where we'd be better just to bid these projects, like Commissioner Holmes referred to. So, anything else from Public Works?
That's all I had, unless you guys have any questions.
That was enough.
Yeah.
So, all right. Thank you, David.
All right, thank you.
Trevor got out of here as soon as he got approved, didn't he?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're ready for Mark or David or.
Mr. Chairman, members of this commission, I've provided to you a request for board action. As it states, the action being requested is consideration to approve 2 conditional agreements to finance, partially finance the cost and extension of utility, specifically water and specifically gas, services to an unincorporated area of the county to serve as a potential customer for these services. It is recommended that both agreements be approved. A little background on this. This commission and prior commissions have strongly advocated and acted to support economic development in this county. You've instructed staff to make certain inquiries and discussions regarding a potential customer located in an industrial facility in Leavenworth County, Kansas. This is not a prospect. They go out and run and they knock on the door. Part of the interest they expressed, strong interest, is that the facility they are considering and have studied to locate in Leavenworth County, Kansas, does require a significant extension of those 2 specific utility services. I believe the potential client has made other arrangements with Westar for electrical, but the need for enhancement of natural gas supply to the host site and water supply to the host site is still on the table. Mr. Lockery and I have been in contact with Atmos Energy and Suburban Water Company and have worked to craft a conditional agreement, both with Atmos and Suburban Water, with the county's assistance in the form of what is called aid in construction. I'll cover that in a moment. Enable both of those utilities to assure the customer, the developer of that industrial project, adequate utility services, and to proceed with the construction of that industrial plant. What I've asked you to, and I'll answer any specifics, but what I'm asking this board to consider is entering into those conditional agreements. In what way are they conditional? They are conditioned upon subsequent actions and commitments made by the customer to construct that facility, and subsequent actions to ensure proper easements to allow the utilities to service that customer. If those agreements cannot be reached for future agreements, then your commitment, quite frankly, to use the legal phrase, dissolves. Any obligation you would enter into under these agreements is conditioned on future prospective acts for the construction and development of an industrial project. The amounts are, quite frankly, eye-opening. There's With respect to Atmos Energy, a very reputable and experienced firm, they've estimated to extend a high-pressure gas line with sufficient volume to serve the potential customer and additional capacity for that area is roughly a $1.7.5 million project. Their proposal that we're bringing for you would be for the county to provide aid in construction in the amount of $1,344,000. The entirety of that amount of aid in construction to be repaid by Atmos over a 5-year period. It is anticipated that that money from Atmos to the county would be generated by sales of natural gas to the customer. Suburban agreement is similar. In that case, however, the county would commit to providing aid in construction in an amount not to exceed $6 million. That amount to be repaid to the county over a 20-year period. Both agreements do involve the request by the county to have, or actions by the county, to undertake to have tax abatement for both Suburban's extension and Atmos's extension in a specified amount, basically 100% with payments in lieu of taxes. And I suggest the payments in lieu of taxes, particularly for Suburban, are generous, 50% in lieu of taxes. It's generous for Atmos, I believe it's 20%. What these two agreements would obligate the county, if all conditions are met, is to provide that aid in construction. It would require the two utility services to construct extensions of those utility services. And obviously the customer purchase water and natural gas. But if no finalization of the agreement with the customer to construct an industrial facility and to pay for natural gas by Atmos or water supply by Suburban, the conditions aren't met, there's no obligation on the part of the county. What we're asking, what Mr. Lofgren and I are asking, is this board to support the commitment by the county for economic development purposes, aid in construction in the amount of roughly $7,344,000. I don't do my own taxes.
Okay, I'm glad.
For the purpose of an incentive to a real, what we believe viable, and interested customer, basically an economic development project for the county that has a great deal of certainty in it. There's still some conditions out there to be met, but both Suburban and Atmos have spent a great deal of time and at this point in time, their expense to study these proposals. The county has spent a great deal of time to study these proposals. It's felt by both Mr. Lofgren and myself, based upon my legal review of these agreements, that they offer a real opportunity to this county to, with commitment by the county. Quite frankly, that commitment does not come without some risk. Commitment that would allow this industrial economic development project to proceed. With respect to the risk, if the county commits to provide construction and aid to Atmos, the project starts and those funds are expended. If a year, 2 years from now, if the customer defaults, there is a risk that there would be no sales of natural gas and that Atmos would not repay the county. If the county commits to providing aid in construction to Suburban for that $6 million, at some point off in the future, that 20 years isn't met, the county could be at risk of that. Both of those entities studied this matter and they developed repayment plans for the county. In Atmos's case, it's a 5-year repayment. In Suburban, it's a 20-year. And I think that's just due to the vagaries and differences between those two industries. But in both cases, the funds provided in aid in construction are designed within both agreements to be repaid. It's not a loan, it's aid in construction. The cost to the county would be the loss of investment for 5 years of $1,344,000, and it reduces over time. And the loss of investment return on $6 million, and subject to the fact it will reduce over time. Currently, investors are not being paid a lot of money to have that money invested in either the MIP or with your other depositories. This is a real project, it is a substantial project, and further commitment to the economic development of the county of Leavenworth your fleet. It's not completely finalized yet, but this step is designed to give the customer yet greater assurance that the county supports these projects, supports the extension of those utility services, specifically gas and water, to a defined area for the defined project. And it's time sensitive.
Okay. Is there anyone here from Atmos or Suburban on this that could answer any questions that any of us might have, commissioners?
Chairman, may I ask either Mark or David a couple of questions?
Yes, sir.
Looking at the Atmos contract, page 3, county shall be in default if customer fails to connect its proposed plant and facilities to the extended natural gas distribution facility and purchase or transport natural gas. They're the ones defaulting, but that's under the county's default.
The county would be in default in 3 occasions. If the county doesn't make any payments, call for an agreement. If the county fulfills to obligate any other obligations, call for an agreement. Or the customer fails to connect its proposed plant and facilities to the extended natural gas line and certain natural gas transport natural gas lines, customer just doesn't pay. I think C is one is a very remote occasion, because before any of these obligations come into effect, the county would have to have an agreement with the customer. In other words, if customer defaults, the county defaults, Atmos could declare that there's a default and seek remedies. I know it's uncertain. This is something I'm, quite frankly, uncomfortable with myself, Commissioner. But my level of comfort has greatly increased because the agreement never comes into effect if we don't reach an agreement with the customer to proceed with the project. If at some point the customer backed out in the middle of construction, I don't think either the county or Suburban or Atmos is going to continue to construct a line to nowhere. Neither Atmos nor Suburban consider the likelihood of that default to be present or sufficient to risk canceling their participation in the project.
I guess my problem is the way that it's worded. Default, county shall be in default, but it's the customer fails to connect. So it's the customer takes the action or doesn't, it's the county in default.
Because the customer isn't there to buy the gas if the line is extended.
Yeah.
Commissioner, I fully understand that. More than a decade ago, this county undertook a large project to connect Leavenworth County via County Road 1 to the I-78 interchange. Leavenworth County was the only county in the state of Kansas that the interchange ran through, a major economic factor in this state, and did not have a single connection. At the same time, we lost all of our railroad connections. This commission and prior commissions supported and maintained County Road 1 as a major interchange with the concept that it would add driving experience and pleasure to the citizens of Leavenworth County and others. But more importantly, as an instigator and an incentive for economic development. The actions of extending those major required utility services in that corridor are similar. We truly believe that the likelihood of the improvement is imminent, and these agreements allow that imminent improvement to proceed. They're conditions. So what we would sign today is, I use the illusion trail track. If the train goes off the tracks, it's over. If at some point in the future there's a problem, it's going to be more complicated, but it never starts unless these are the conditions are met.
We're going now to remedies under 5B. In the event any legal action is necessary by Atmos to enforce any of the terms and conditions of this agreement, the county pays Atmos Energy all costs, expenses, and fees so incurred, including attorney fees.
I don't like those provisions. It's in there. You could ask Atmos to delete it.
Well,
Suburban Water did not add that phrase in there. We could ask them to remedy that further. I think there's a public policy issue as to whether a private entity can ask you to contract with respect to attorneys. In other words, I think to use that clause not to proceed forward is really, I think the peril for that is minimal or de minimis.
Well, I hate to be a pain in the back of everybody's lap, but
Commissioner,
you know I do read legal documents.
I understand that, Commissioner.
I think the indemnification clause that you're referring to is something we have discussed, and that I don't believe that it can be part of it, but it is. These are subject to further review than just what we're doing here. And I think we've even discussed this with Amazon.
In other words,
Just to hear from your comment on that, please.
are you saying that we are available for further review of these documents?
Well, I think that this item has been discussed, and I think they have their.
Yes. Good morning. My name's Jim Flaherty. I'm an attorney from Ottawa, Kansas, and
I don't hold that against you.
Thank you. I represent Atmos Energy, and I believe the way the provision reads that if it's allowed by law, and Atmos is successful in maintaining the lawsuit against the county for any breach, then it would be allowed attorney's fees. And it's my understanding in talking with counsel that there are limitations on when Atmos actually could obtain attorney's fees under Kansas law. And in fact, we may not be able to obtain attorney's fees under Kansas law. So that's the reason for that. I think it was based upon that discussion, Atmos agreed to include in that provision to the extent allowed by law. So I think that should cover the issue that you raised.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I've never met Mr. Flaherty. I've enjoyed working with him. If he has to file legal action against us, I'll make argument he's not entitled to his probably exorbitant attorney's fees. That's not, I hate to use a non-legal phrase. Don't let this be the DOT killer. I think Kansas law protects you on this. I think the likelihood of default, if you don't sign an agreement that you anticipate is going to be breached, sign an agreement that you anticipate will be successful and provide great benefit to this county. I think that's what's in front of
Does anyone else have any questions of the attorney for Atmos? Commissioner Graber?
Well, now I'm looking at the other one. This is the one with suburban water. County shall be in default if customer fails to connect its proposed plant and facilities to the extended water distribution facility and purchase and/or transport potable water through the extended water distribution facility.
you. Yes, sir. That's.
I mean, it's an out.
And they want it.
Well, I understand that, but you don't give everybody everything they want.
Well, the county really can't claim its default if the customer doesn't reach an agreement, doesn't purchase water, because the county has to go out and get that agreement. I think Suburban is merely trying to wisely protect their interests by saying if they extend the line, even if we put money up front for it, we're in breach and they would not be obliged to repay that. And it's sizable at $6 million. We've looked at the risks inherent in any agreement. We've looked at particular risks with respect to this specific agreement. And the perception of both myself, Mr. Lawford, and Suburban and Atmos is that risk is greatly outweighed by the opportunity and the likelihood of success of this project.
Well, we agreed to this for 20 years. Say they close the plant in 10 years.
That's a very bad occasion for both parties, because now Suburban.
It's a worse occasion for us.
Then the county's not going to be repaid whatever's left on that construction in aid payment. But Commissioner, again, I'm certainly not advising this commission to even consider either agreement if there's anticipation of default. I don't think Atmos would have spent their time and efforts or be present if they anticipated the likelihood of default, or Suburban. It could occur. Extremely adverse things can occur. Will they occur? You have to weigh the likelihood of them.
But isn't my job to look at the possible liability for the county
Yes, Commissioner, and you're doing that. As a steward of public funds, you're, quite frankly, it's inherently required that you do so. And I think Mr. Lofgren and I have taken that in mind in analyzing and crafting these agreements. Atlas is protecting its interests. Suburban will protect its interests. This board will work to protect the interests of the county, while at the same time offering a significant opportunity to the citizens of the county.
Oh, I understand that. I'm not saying that I am against these projects. I'm just saying that the way the contracts are written, certain parties have been given a better hand to play than I think we have.
I'd like to just jump in a little bit here. One, the potential investment for the project we're talking about is in excess of $400 million. So their risk is potentially is much more significant than ours. I don't think that's an investment anybody walks away from. 10 years, 20 years, I don't think that happens, which is why we're a little more comfortable with some of this language. Two, we both believe that, Mr. Van Paris and I both believe that this Kansas law doesn't allow for some of what they've put in here, which will cover for the attorney fees, and this investment for the default. We understand it's a risk, but we looked at the previous practices of the county in incentivizing development. We invested $13 million, give or take, on County Road 1 with no reimbursement and no guarantee of development.
We've had a couple barns built out there since we did that.
Yeah, right, a couple barns.
But we knew
we've
that
also-
going in when we built County Road 1.
Yes.
In fact, we gave certain exemptions to people along that road so that they could keep their property and use it the way that they had for years.
Right. I'm just pointing out some investments that we've made. In the last 6 months, we've invested another $10 million in improvements, so to incentivize development, potential development, with no expectation of a return on our investment. And that's a policy that we made to encourage development that we hope happens. In this case, we are taking a risk. It's a $7.3 million risk to incentivize actual development. If that development doesn't occur, we have no risk because we don't do any of this. If it does occur, it is a significant investment with a very large commitment by a very well-established firm that we're doing here. And so that's why we're encouraging this board to consider it.
I'm not trying to fault that. I'm just saying these are areas that I think both of you expect me to look at because I'm a pain in the back of the lap.
I expect everybody to look at those. I honestly, I do.
You know, Commissioner, you've been involved with County Road 1, I think, since you've been here, I believe.
Yes, and at the time we did County Road 1, we were the only major county in the state without access to our county from a major highway.
Right, and the voters passed the sales tax for the project.
I'd be the first to say it has not developed fully the way I felt it would, but we have been in rather an economic downturn during that period.
And Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Graber, I think the opportunity for that development is not at your door.
Does Suburban have anybody? Your
I
Suburban?
also represent Suburban Water.
Oh, okay. Well, you're the one stop here.
He's an attorney. You can't stop us.
All right. Well, I guess not. Commissioner, do you have any questions of the attorney on the Suburban contract? Anyone else got anything on the Suburban? George? They don't have-
Good morning, Commissioners. George Brakovich. I'm the city manager in Tonganoxie, Kansas, 526 East 4th Street. The mayor sends his apologies. He had a conflict and couldn't be here this morning. I see one of Councilman O'Rourke is here. He's on the city council. First, I think I just would commend your staff for the pursuit of large-scale economic development projects. And I think in my past life being in economic development, a lot of times high risk does equal high reward. Mr. Van Paris did a good job about talking about the utility side of things, the electric, the gas, the water. There is another utility that's being asked for in this project, and that's sanitary sewer, and the city of Tonganoxie has been asked to examine that. And we've done that. We've taken a look at what infrastructure improvements would be required, and that's going to be an ask to the city to invest an additional $1.2 million in infrastructure on top of what we already wanted to invest to run that type of infrastructure to our business park. So it's having said all that, really the message I wanted to bring today before you was a little bit of disappointment from the city side in terms of the amount of communication that went between county staff and city staff looking to pursue this project. Not looking to do anything about the project itself. Again, the kind of risk your staff is asking you to take clearly has to be tied to some sort of economic reward, whether it's direct, indirect, or combined effect of the project itself. I will say here, and one thing I'll advise my elected body to look at is, as we're being asked to make that kind of investment and burden that kind of debt service or additional debt service, I'll probably advise my staff to really closely examine the development agreement that the county has with this project to see if there's any sort of operational covenants put in place. Because for the city of Tonganoxie to make that kind of investment, we're really looking at a USDA loan that probably has something like a 40-year term. So the potential could be to tap in new customers onto that line, which would be great, but there is a high level of risk. And again, for the purposes of today's meeting, I just want to applaud you guys for going after a project of this nature, but wanted to make sure you were aware of some of the communication issues.
I take exception to that, George. Communication issues?
Yes.
In what aspect? Was anybody contacting you to inform you on the project and as it progressed? Were you receiving that update from the LCDC?
Not really.
Oh, so you weren't, the LCDC was the initial lead on this, and they weren't giving you an update either?
We would receive
Who did you receive your updates from, George?
Well, I will say Mark called me a couple of weeks ago. So I appreciate that phone call at the end of the process. I really did. Thank you.
So the city is going to be providing sewer to this project?
That's the ask, and that's what we've contemplated. We're committed to doing that, provided that we can see.
So will you be annexing this area?
That's not been an option that's been asked of us. And again, I mean, we are, in addition to a sanitary sewer provider, we're also a municipally owned water supply. So, you know, not knowing.
Will you supply sewer without annexing?
That's the ask before us. Again, we're trying to be a good team player here and look at the big picture, what's best for Leavenworth County as a whole. And we want to make sure we're contributing. There is no qualms about providing that service to get this type of impactful project in the county. But I will say we weren't. There was an ask made for other services, but really no follow through after that ask. And I guess
so you got a price of an estimate of 1.2 million just to provide sewer to this project?
Yeah. And we're hopeful that your project will commit, and we hope they're in place for a long time. And what Mark said is absolutely true, that a project of that magnitude is not going to make that kind of investment and leave after a very short period. But nothing's a guarantee.
But you don't have an estimate to provide water?
We were asked to take a look at that, but we were not asked to provide a number.
Like I said, it's in the county. It's in it's a suburban district.
Suburban service area. And We did not contact Suburban, just said okay.
I appreciate that. I guess
We didn't
my,
contact Atlas. We didn't contact Westar.
I understand.
We were handed the group that we were to work with. I just wanted, we did not exclude you. Just wanted to say that.
I appreciate that. I guess I'm here for the record to say I'd like to have better communication with you directly then, so we can avoid this in the future, because I think we're going to get other big projects. And again, it's nothing about the project. This is a fantastic get. It's a big win. I've got experience from my past life on working on big projects, and I know the kind of impact this will make on the county. But you know, communication with my elected body, I've been asked to make sure that we share that. You know, it would have been nicer to have a little better communication on it. So, having said that, I'll allow someone else to make comment.
What about Westar? Are we gonna have to make any investment on that?
Westar's committed to the project through a different agreement. They have not approached the county about anything.
You don't represent Westar, too, do you?
I do not.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. Any commissioners?
No.
Somebody else had their hand
I've
up.
read over it.
Mr. Rowe.
Dino Road, 232 Oak Ridge, Lansing, Kansas. I would ask that the commission go back and read the minutes of the public hearing and all the discussion that was presented by Suburban Water District when they applied to the county to have their 1.5 million gallon tank installed east of County Road 1 and Kansas Avenue, testimony that they give of what they would do if the county allowed that water tank to be built in that area. I would also that you contact the Kansas Corporation Commission and read their minutes of what Suburban told the Kansas Corporation Commission that they would do if they were granted the franchise rights down along County Road 1. I think those two documents reveal a lot of information that the county's looking for. Right now, I will quote from the December 29th, 2005 records of the Board of County Commissioners of a public hearing. Mike Brewer, Suburban Water District, stated he really did not have an opinion on which route to take on County Road 1. He wants to clarify that Suburban has a service territory that is east of County Road 1 and at Kansas Avenue at 222nd Street. They installed a 1.5 million gallon reservoir water tank and are installing a 20-inch water main down 222nd Street. Was that water line ever installed, or was that another promise made to get what they want, hoping everybody would forget? Well, I will say I don't forget. I have a vast majority of records at my home of what has occurred in Leavenworth County since 2005. Suburban started about 18 years ago near Baser and continues to go south and serve the communities, and they are looking forward to expanding their water mains. They are a private-owned water company, are regulated by the Kansas Corporation Commission. Being their evaluation and their taxation is based and compiled by the Kansas Corporation Commission, not the local county. This is one reason if I understood David correctly, that there would be abatement by taxes. The Kansas Corporation Commission would regulate any abatement, which normally they don't do, not the county or the Board of County Commissioners. I don't know where the right-of-way, where the water lines will be installed, whether that's public or on private right-of-way, but I do have a November 2008 issue of county government comments. Norm Bowers, who was a county engineer in Johnson County and was head of the County Engineers Association, private right-of-way, private pipelines on public right-of-ways. And the article goes on to where these private companies entice the county of what they're gonna do. You let them build their line on our right-of-way, then it comes back that we have to pay them to move those water lines thousands or millions of dollars, which, according to a Kansas Supreme Court case of Mall versus CW Rural Electric Cooperative that was rendered in 1950, if they're building on the county right-of-way, the county's not obligated to pay them anything. They assume that when they put it in that right-of-way, that if it's to be moved, they're to be the risk taker, not the county. And the last statement, many times pipeline owners come to the county for permission to install their line on the right-of-way because they can't get permission from the private property owners. I sympathize with those companies, but their difficulties do not make it the county's obligation to stretch the law and allow the use of public right-of-way for private purposes. Thank you.
Thank you.
David, do you have any response to?
Commissioner, there are currently examples, I don't have a comprehensive list to give you, of instances where there are private uses of public right-of-way. And the agreement does call for the county to allow both Atmos and Suburban to install their pipelines in existing county right-of-way. One, with no expectation by the county that County Road 1 would be improved in the near future. Two, that if at some point it becomes a 4-lane road and those pipelines would have to be moved, they would be done at the county's expense. That is to incentivize Atmos and Suburban to install their lines as much as possible in right-of-way, which we purchased in the past through the use of eminent domain, and not have to basically initiate other eminent domain proceedings to widen that right-of-way. There's a risk to the county involved in that. If that we allow, as an incentive, either Atmos or Suburban to install those pipelines right-of-way, which again require a great deal of right-of-way during the county road project, we might have to look at the cost of relocating that utility through eminent domain. We don't anticipate a great deal of that, if any.
But that changes the complexion of these entire contracts.
Well, if there are any questions with regard to any of the elements of the contract, because they all have to be read together.
I guess this was for Mr. Lujan. When public utilities install in the county right-of-way, do you have a say how many feet in they can be, or can they be right on the shoulder of the road? Can they be right?
We have a utility accommodation policy that establishes where they can and cannot.
I mean, most of your power poles are right on the right-of-way as a general rule, but I mean, like water line or gas line, they can be right at the bottom of the ditch or on the shoulder, and then we have any maintenance, or like you said, you have to put in a turn lane or something, and then we'd be paying.
My water line is on my property,
Yes,
but my power poles that was on my property, they've moved them on the county right away now.
and that's a good
So I
place
don't
for
know.
them when they have an ice storm.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they still fall through my fence.
Yeah, they got electric fence in,
Yeah, no.
but,
Well,
Mark, have we looked at where the utilities are in relation to the area that these companies wish to use?
Well, they haven't designed this project yet. I mean, this is still preliminary discussion.
That could have a great effect on the ultimate cost to the county.
if the County Road 1 would be ever improved to a 4-lane or something like that.
Future cost,
Yeah.
potentially, not the current cost. It's still part of this project. And them acquiring additional right-of-way would have an immediate increased cost to the county. Now, this is similar language that we've used for state utility relocations along 147th Street. and other locations in the county.
And hopefully by then, the city of Tonga will annex all that out there.
If I could add, Mark, attached to both agreements is a map
Mhm.
that does show the proposed location of where the lines will be extended both on the gas and
It
water.
shows the route.
Yeah, we don't, it doesn't show the right of way though.
Oh, it does not, exactly right.
Tell the engineers that.
I looked.
No, it'd just be, and I'm sure that would be determined when the engineer designs the line and puts it, you know, they go out for bid also. Yes, sir, Mr. Rowe?
I don't remember, Doug, whether you were involved with it. Mr. Graber was on the commission on Kansas Avenue, over Wolf Creek. The county proposed to build a new bridge.
Oh,
Doug, you been around here?
On our county road there.
yeah, by the railroad tracks.
Right there.
Yep,
The
yep.
railroad tracks.
I was.
And I believe it was Rural Water District number 7 had a water line. And they come down to drill and for a test to put the bridge in Butler.
Yep.
And they drilled into the water line, which I believe was Rural Water District number 7. And they sent us an exorbitant bill up in the tens of thousands of dollars. And we fought them and told them to go back and look at their service agreement. At that time, their utility was supposed to be 105 feet off the center of the county line road. And they got to the point, they hired an attorney and were ready to go to court. And then they decided to come in and they found out that the county rules and regulations were correct and they would eat the whole project and their line relocation because of the accommodations and our rules and regulations that we had in place. One thing that I would probably advise the board on, from my perspective, some, like the dust patches, that the Board of Commissioners adopt those policies by resolution and not just a matter of policy. Because if it is a matter of a resolution, it continues on from one board to the other. In many cases, policies and even contracts go die-sign. When the old board goes die-sign and a new board comes on, which is the election of the 2 commissioners, all contracts can be terminated at that point if the commission wished to do so. We had purchased some heavy equipment on those contracts when I was a commissioner, and the companies contacted us and wanted to know whether we were going to terminate or whether we would honor and continue those contracts. We went ahead and honored them and went on, but legally we were not obligated to do so. Thank you.
Back on your Kansas Avenue project, I believe that water district didn't belong to DigSafe either at that time. So when the contractor called in to locate, they didn't mark their line. And
I don't think he did.
And I think that's what saved a little bit of that. But yeah, the line was supposed to be in private easement, but it wasn't. I guess just one more question to George. Is the city of Tongi going to be asking for any financial help on this sewer?
Is that an offer?
No, it's a question. It's a question. I mean, I'm just trying to, make sure we got everything covered here. It said West Star's got a deal made, or
Yeah, no, that we're not. That's the short answer. And basically it's because we believe in the caliber of a project like this. We're prepared to try to, make that commitment. Again, it's for us.
do you see it
we're
as an
looking at
investment then, if this project
We do.
goes through, that you're going to fill in the gap?
We do, we do, but again, to make it something that a small, town of 5,200 people can afford to do, we have to look at carrying a debt service over a 40-year term, and again, the flip side is what kind of operational covenants might be in place through a development agreement that the county's working on to ensure that we can take that kind of risk.
Okay.
So long-winded answer, but short answer was no, we're not asking.
Just didn't want any surprises, you know. And like I said, yes, sir.
I just gave to George this morning a letter and some feasibility studies and some plans for the development by one landowner on County Road 1 near the turnpike who owns over 2,000 acres. And their attorney, I give George that letter that they paid for these plans themselves for the development.
A private citizen paid for a land use study
Of their 2,000 acres.
of their own, just their own property, not the
And
whole
in their letter,
corridor?
they referenced that they would like to annex that into the city of Tonganoxie as part of their master plan for development. So I just wanted to tell you that that plan was given to the city of Tonga this morning.
Was that recent or when County Road 1 was first rebuilt?
It was when County Road
Yeah.
1 was
When the interchange was installed, that's when they did the land use study?
Yes.
Okay. And it's still the same people, same owners, everything's the same?
Same attorney.
Well, that'd been helpful when we do our land use study. I was hoping the city and the county could come together and do a land use study on that. But, any other comments?
Actually, when I sat down, I thought about your last question, and I wanted to clarify that Mr. Lawfrey did make an offer. So the funds that you all awarded the city to get the business park under development, he did suggest that if there were any cost savings there, that potentially we could apply it to any additional infrastructure we have, this cost associated with this bigger project. And so I thank you for that offer. I don't know if we'll have to come back before this body to amend that should everything keep moving forward, or if we'll just do administrative amendment to the letter. Because I believe the original agreement.
You'd have to ask for an amendment to.
Okay, all right.
Well, that's good.
I want to make sure I clarified that for the record.
Okay. All right. Yes,
David,
sir.
after this in-depth discussion this morning, is it still your recommendation to move ahead with these two contracts?
Yes, Commissioner, it is.
Mr. Rowe?
Curtis O'Rourke at 105 South Village, Tonganoxie, Kansas. As George has told you, that I'm part of the City Council of Tonganoxie, and we appreciate you guys' partnership with the business park and so forth like that. I think we've come to a point that the county and the City of Tonganoxie can work as a partnership and provide services for our community and the county. I think we need to be careful of how we invest our money, because I know the city invests their money as much as, especially going through the budget system, and also for how many times we butt our head against the wall and see what we can provide with the money we get through our budgets. I think we need to be careful with having a public identity with our water system and so forth. I think it might be an interest that, we might look at other options, especially if the city of Tonganoxie is going to invest $1.3 million in the sewer, that we start looking at maybe the water supply too, that we can supply that company and so forth, and look at all options instead of just one or two options. I mean, we're within the 2-mile radius of the city of Tonganoxie, and I think that, our council is coming as an aggressive council to work together and create economic development. And I think it's the best interest that the county and the city continue that, no different than where the business park is, but on down the future to work together. This is a project that, yes, it's going to be a game changer. Very big game changer. And we want to be a part of that. But if you're going to give money out, I'm going to tell you on the council side of that, going through just the budget stuff, we'll take $1.3 million to help do the sewer system and so forth like that. I mean, it's only fair to ask on our behalf, because, you know.
That's why I asked.
Well, the budget crisis is,
Yeah.
we just went through it, and it's hard nosed. And we have to make decisions that we don't want to make. You know, George has been very upfront with the council and tries to give us as much information we can to make a good choice for our community. Yes, we are going to go through growing pains. There is no doubt that we are. We are going to go through growing pains, no different than the county is. But I think you need to be careful with the private identity of supplier. I think it would be in the best interest to possibly have both government agencies, as the county and the city, to work together on the same project than having an individual investing money into that, because I think it's going to be more of a better risk on the city side than the county side if you have two government agencies working together than having an individual. And that's my personal belief, but you know, if that's true, then now I'm going to change the hat. And I'm going to be a developer and building houses, which that's what I do. Then I would love to have you finance a couple of my projects, if that's what you're going to do, because I'm an individual, and if I go out there and put a subdivision, well, I'm going to put my hand out there and say, hey, I'm making an investment for all these houses. So I want some incentive too, because that's basically what we're doing. But you know, I just want to make sure that you cross your T's, dot your I's on all the behalfs on the side of the Leavenworth County. You know, I was born and raised with that gentleman over here. That
I'm not going to comment on that, Curtis.
it's been very difficult to grow up and answer to that stuff. But
Well, you're second generation here on this County Road 1 project, basically. The city does have a large investment in County Road 1 also.
That's correct.
You're still making payments to the county. You have a balloon payment here at the end of 19, I believe. So the city of Tongi has invested in County Road 1.
that is correct.
So, and looks like you're going to continue to invest as long as, you know, with the sewer and all that. But, yeah, I understand what you're saying, Curtis. I do. And like I said, I guess we're lucky to have two generations here that's worked on County Road 1. So.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know.
Is there going to be a third before we get this done?
I doubt it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mark, do you have anything to add to that other than how this came about to these utilities getting to where we're at now?
Well, we were approached about 2 months ago to be made aware of this project, the potential project. The meeting was set up, and the potential interested parties were invited to that meeting. I was included in that meeting, and it was conducted over at the LCDC by Mr. Steve Jack in the state of Kansas. So they invited everybody in, and then they went and identified properties around the county that would fit for this company, this potential development. Once that location was identified, the entities began negotiations with everybody who was involved. They came to an impasse on a couple of those negotiation processes, and the state approached the county and asked if there was anything that we could do. That discussion was had here. I've had that discussion with the board, and we moved forward with what you have in front of you here. These are two key pieces of the process, these two agreements. Without these agreements, I can assure you that the project won't go forward. With the agreements, I can't assure you that it's going to go forward, but I can tell you that it won't without. And if it doesn't go forward, even with the agreements, then we're not obligated to anything by these agreements. So the utilities, that was not a contact that we initiated. We were brought into it and said, we were in an impasse with them. Can you assist? And the county stepped up. In fact, at that time, I believe, I did reach out to the city of Tonganoxie and said, if for whatever reason the water company can't provide what's needed, is the city interested? And he said, yes, they were. But the water district was interested, and they are able to provide it, and so we move forward.
Guess next question would be for the clerk. We gonna be able to fund this like this is?
You know, there's industrial revenue bonds. I'm not exactly sure what the funding would be if the project does move forward, but there are certainly available ways to finance this.
Do you feel comfortable with this?
Well, we're going to have to go out and issue IRBs, aren't we? We don't have the funding available.
So I think that we would have to look at additional revenue bonds, IRBs. That's my opinion.
Okay.
There is some savings from 147th Street. We might have.
Certainly, it's just that, you know, that's been committed at this point, so, and I just think, once it's determined that the project's gonna move forward, then, you know, we would have to, look at the availability and the types of financing.
Okay.
Mark, in your closing remarks, and I'm trying to quote you the way you said it, these documents are conditional, and it's simply a first step to move forward. Is that right?
That's correct.
David, do you agree?
Well, it's certainly not a first step, but we're getting near the finale.
Yes,
Final step.
but these are not the final.
They are conditional, and if the project does not move forward, the conditions aren't met, there's no obligation on the part of the We try to protect the county as much as we can, at the same time indicating this county's board's support for economic development through various means that are lawfully available to it.
Any more questions of the commissioners? Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to the commitment of amount of $7,344,000 for aid in construction costs, $1,344,000 for Atmos, $1,344,000 for Atmos, $6 million for Suburban Water, with reimbursement to the county by Atmos and Suburban through the terms of the agreement.
David, do you concur with the motion?
Mr. Holland, I understand the intent and gist of your motion. I think it might be simpler if the board were to consider this as a motion, or if you were to consider this a motion, that the board approves entry into the agreement with Atmos Energy and Suburban Water and is presented before the board to include the terms involved, outlined and made part of that agreement.
I'll rescind my motion then. And whatever you said,
Subject to final review and approval.
right,
Yes.
yes.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Graber, let the record note that the board has approved entry into the two agreements. I understand the trepidation you have. I certainly share it.
Oh, I don't think you fully
I would like
understand.
to tell you, in the interest of putting your mind at ease, this isn't a decision that will be made next year. We anticipate the decision will be made soon, possibly within this week, so that these two agreements, so conditional, don't hang over you. We'll try to get this matter finalized as soon as possible.
Anything else on this? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Voting?